Hello there and welcome to CFO Conversations. I'm your host, Paula Kensington, and I have the great pleasure of welcoming back Joe Gullick into the studio. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Paula.
So today, a conversation that we've done a number of times around leadership and really what does that mean in our business, and is there a gap and how do we close that gap? We've talked about gender gap and pay gaps, but I think there's a leadership gap too. And how do we close that from our leadership style, and hopefully we're good leaders. But I've worked with a number of senior people that aren't demonstrating good leadership styles. So there is a gap, and how do we manage to close that? Joe, what have you come across in your career?
Yeah, sure. I think in terms of leadership, it's not just a title. So it's a lot more than that. And it's the way you portray yourself within the business, making yourself very accessible so people feel they can come to you, particularly when there is an issue or a problem. I think when you are seeing bad behaviours around the organisation with leadership, you call that out. So it takes a lot of guts to do that. But I think if you have a set of company values and you see someone working outside those values who is a leader, it's really important that you do call that out in an appropriate way.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some pretty tricky situations, and I've actually had to call out the CEO of a business I worked with a few years ago because he wasn't leading from the top really, and so that's challenging.
It is really challenging, absolutely.
Not only is it was a guy and he's my boss, and so how do you dig deep to solve that one?
I think the way that I reconcile it with myself is, I think if I am not doing something about it for my team and for the rest of the staff, what does it say about me? So it's then, if I can't call this out, they're not going to be able to do that.
Totally.
And it's then saying that you're condoning that sort of behaviour within the business.
Yeah, for sure. I think that gap, as I say, between the executives, but even in the board, that's a real challenge. And so perhaps there's sounding board advice that you can glean from other CFOs or other people outside of your business. I think it's really important to make sure you've got a strong inner circle of people, your peers, so you can say to them, look, this has happened to me. Has this happened to you? How would you approach this?
Yes, I think that's a really good idea. I'm very lucky to sit actually on a CFO roundtable in our industry. So I do have a number of peers that I could go to with those types of issues and would feel comfortable doing so. And I think it is important sometimes when you've got a really conflicted issue like that. I mean, we don't often see them, thank goodness, but I think it is important to have a sounding board because it can have, career impacts as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, on yourself and on
Absolutely,
others.
yes.
Yeah, and it's really sort of making sure that you're actually ready to take that jump, because sometimes it can be it is a lonely journey. It can be a one-way journey potentially. Yes. But like you say, I would rather challenge that and lose my job than not and keep a job that I'm not happy working with leaders like that.
Absolutely. I think the other thing too, which is thinking about ourselves as leaders and then our own leadership shadow, and really, what are we like? So if you come in with having a bad day, what effect does that have on your team? So even just bringing it back to a very personal thing, how you can as a leader, really empower your staff and encourage your staff and not bring all the bad things you might have in your personal life into work.
Yeah, be the leader perhaps that you didn't have, and certainly in my career, I'm now being the leader that I didn't have. This is the leadership that I wanted to have, and that can really help frame how am I going to come to the day today, like you said already. Leaving some of your own baggage at the door.
That's right.
Because you're there for other people.
You are there for other people.
Job.
Absolutely it is. And to mentor them and to encourage them to potentially become leaders in the future as well.
Yeah. And for people that are watching that are aspiring CFOs, I'd really encourage you to think about where your energy is coming from, where your attitude is coming from. We talked earlier about purpose, but all of those things, it's almost tiring before you got to work, but you've got to actually think about that on a daily basis.
You absolutely do, and come in as a breath of fresh air, and we can't always be up, but on the whole, to be up and to be encouraging your staff and to bring that really positive vibe into the team.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and it becomes contagious then.
It does, absolutely it does, yes.
Okay, thanks Joe, it's a great conversation.